Hi, Graham. This is fun for me because we've known each other a very long time, and you're my very first interview. So I feel very calm and collected because I've known you so long. Um,
Thanks, Sharon.
and I actually have admired your work because you work on so many different levels simultaneously. So I want to introduce everybody to Graham Wright, who's an MSW and a man of many, many talents who works so much, just not in California, but nationally, affecting all the work that we do. And I know that people can take the time to do a deep dive into your biography that's on the NCAP website. But what I would love for you to do would be to name maybe 5 things that you would like them to know about you, those that are watching and listening today, what you'd like them to know about you professionally. What are the things that have meant the most to you that you feel will be part of your legacy?
Well, 5 things out of our list. Let's see. I think probably above all else is the decision that we made in the early '80s and continued was to not do any social work, any adoption work without the involvement of an adoptive parent and a therapist on staff. So that there was always the perspective of the social worker, the therapist, and the experienced adoptive parent to put into the mix and to add to the decision making. And it was always a team after that. A team in, first of all, in treatment with therapeutic foster care. And I believe we were the first therapeutic foster care agency, certainly in this state. And that was created out of the necessity because children in the county foster care system were not getting access to therapy or indeed to therapy with experienced practitioners. This is a problem. It's still a problem today. But I think many of the NCAP members have improved that situation remarkably with their educational efforts. So teammanship is vital, I think, in the huge decisions that we make in the field on behalf of other people and on behalf of children. We continued that theme when we created AFTER, Adoptive Family Therapeutic and Educational Resources, which initially was a foundation-funded effort to provide adoption services to families because there simply were none, even in an urban area such as the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. And it was free to adoptive families. There was never any means test. And we hooked up the families with what resources we could. We provided services to those in the most desperate situation. And we did all we could with limited resources to prevent the children going into group homes. But more importantly, out of that, at the end of the funding, foundation funding, at the end of a 3-year period, we had always been working on sustainability. I think that's vital in any nonprofit effort, especially startups and especially pilot projects. And this again was a pilot project for the state. So the next pilot project was adoption wraparound, which we first of all got trained in wraparound standards by the state, and we were grateful for that. And we applied it to adoption, which meant, again, having adoptive parents on each family's team, together with the therapist, either in the community or one of the staff, and the social worker whose name changed to facilitator. And we had 18 months with great funding, fabulous funding, through the Adoption Assistance Program to do what needed to be we needed to do to keep the child at home, as opposed to having to go to a group home. So needless to say, the families that were referred to us were in dire straits at the time and had reached that point where they either wanted the child out of the home or did not know what else to do or where else to turn. We would go in and we would help the family define their own needs, not their wants, because we can't always get what we want, but we can get what we need if it's analyzed and if enough resources are put into the picture. So those are my proudest achievements over time. And as I've watched this system, child welfare system, adoption system develop over the years, over many years since the 70s, I'm lucky enough to be involved in a lot of those changes at the state and federal level. And it took a fair amount of obstinacy to get our voices heard, but it was also successful. And one of the things that has come out of it is a much more child-focused and child-successful program that places children's needs first. And there are many more support for families than there used to be.
That's really helpful. I mean, you described so well what it was like in the 70s. I came in the 60s, and so you really were incredibly important in advancing practice, because you're an excellent leader and a wonderful clinician, and you combine those by actually starting a therapeutic agency. And also recognizing early on, which I think we're still struggling with in the country, the importance of specialized wraparound programs that are geared towards the incredible carved out needs of families formed from adoption, foster care, and relative caregiving. So I really want to thank you for that. Part of the video is getting to know you as a person, a flesh and blood human being. So what are some things that would be fun to know about you that have nothing to do with your career? What kinds of things do you like to do? How do you play?
Well, how do I play? I'm a sailor. I've always loved to be on the water, and I've owned several boats and sailboats. And I'm lucky to live in an area where competitive sailboat racing is a big deal. Where I live, they built some of the fastest racing sailboats in the world, and it's great to be around those people. I'm a traveler when I can. I obviously, when I was growing up in Europe, it was a lot easier to travel to different cultures and experience different things. My son and grandchildren live in Amsterdam now. They emigrated and enjoying that culture, which is very different and interesting. And let's see, what else do I do? I'm a political junkie, mostly an observer, but I enjoy political interaction. I'm a member of PBS, a proud member of PBS. So that's about all the television we watch in our house. And I love to cook. French cooking, some Chinese, Mexican cooking. I've learned to love Mexican cuisine in various parts of that country. So that's about it, I think.
That's a lot. I mean, you're like a Renaissance man. This is very exciting. I think I would really like to ask you a little bit about how you got into the field. You said you got your social work degree in Great Britain and started out there for a couple of years before you came here to the United States. Who or what drew you to the work that you do?
Well, it's interesting. What drew me to social work at the time, I had absolutely no idea. When I graduated at undergraduate level, I was interviewed to become a sociological town planner, which is back in the days when there used to be the study of urban sociology, which, you know, has been kind of debunked nowadays. There is only sociology. But I interviewed for that, and they offered me a job. But at the same time, I saw a position for a social work job in Southern England, and thought, why don't I do that for a couple of years and then think about what else I want to do? And so I became a generic social worker, which in those days, you were given what was called a patch, which is in American terms is a neighborhood. And within that neighborhood, when whatever went down, you dealt with, whether it was juvenile probation, child welfare, adult protective services, childcare. It was a whole mixed bag. So that gave me some broad exposure. And at the end of 2 years, the county I was working for basically sponsored me to go to graduate school at York University. But to answer your question, I was unaware at the time of what drove me, and it was only later on, much later on, in therapy, in my personal therapy, when the obvious came to me, because I was the only child of a single mom in my school. I did not know anybody else that did not have a father in the home in my school. And when it finally hit me that where I'd ended up in social work, rebuilding families and building families, had a lot to do with me working through my own loss of a normal family structure. And I guess I was trying to rebuild that family of origin for myself.
Wow. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I think probably
the fascinating thing is I was unaware of it until, you know, probably 15 years ago.
Well, I think so many of us in the helping and supporting fields find out that there was either a mentor that really struck us or a family story that really motivated us. And it's wonderful to find that out. It gives us a good understanding of why we come into a field and stay with it and make meaning out of it.
Right.
And so it kind of leads me to a question. Since I'm going to be turning 80 and I'm retiring, and this is kind of my fun way to stay in touch with all of you, is to do these interviews. One of the things that I'm aware of is, you know, how it is I'd like to be remembered. So when you retire, what do you want people to remember about you when they're talking about Graham Wright and they say, well, that man, what he did, which I'll never forget, or the lesson he taught me that I'll never forget, what do you hope stays in people's minds and hearts about your work?
Okay. The proudest thing I can think of is that I became pretty famous for thinking outside the box. And encouraging my staff in teamwork to do exactly that. We would always do an analysis of each other's skill sets. What do you bring to the table? And not your professional skills necessarily, although that's important, but what else do you bring to the table? Are you great at woodwork? Are you great at, you love to drive cars? What skill set can you bring in and adapt to your relationship with the children you're going to work with? And when you have sufficient staff, you know, about 8 or 10 people, then you can draw down from a huge collection of skills and adapt those to fit the child's needs in working with them. And that's what we did in Wraparound. And I'm really quite proud of that. Thinking outside the box is crazy ideas, crazy, put them on the table, you know, do so as a team and just put them on the table, let everybody else knock them down. And then all of a sudden, one will stand out and everybody will go, whoa, that's a thought that I never had before. I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah,
I was serving on Governor Gray Davis's children's committee, which was formed to redesign the child welfare system in California in 2000 until 2003. And we were sitting around one day because there was a problem with community care licensing and foster children wanting to do things like go out on dates, and can they go out on dates and not be supervised? Licensing would say no, and everybody else are going, well, that's silly. So what can we do to? And there were many, many examples of that where regulations were being interpreted so narrowly that foster children were trapped in an abnormal existence that didn't make any sense. And so out of the blue, I just remembered something from my early days, and that it's called the prudent parent standard. And very quickly, it's based on English law, it's English family law, which is, well, what would the man on a bus in Clapham, which is a South District of London, what would the man on that Clapham bus think about that? And try and look at that from the point of view of what would a prudent parent do? Okay, it's not too hard to reach an agreement in most situations about what the prudent parent would do. And somehow or other, I wasn't involved in this beyond making the suggestion. It moved into legislation several years later, 2 or 3 years, and now we have the prudent parent standard in foster care.
You've had such wonderful impact. I hope folks that are listening from all over the country are going to be able to pick up some of those ideas, which kind of leads me to the next question, which is, you have a lot to teach all of us. I mean, maybe we've got a parent that's watching this video trying to get to know who the NCAP members are. Maybe it's another clinician, a university professor, we don't know. But you've had a lot of different experiences. And so I wonder if you were going to leave us a couple of gems. Two of them you just gave us. Think outside the box, and the whole idea of prudent parenting, you know, kind of judging what's going on in our community based on what the common man would think was acceptable, kind of giving us the average, if you will. But what else would you want to leave everybody with that you've learned in terms of the legislative process, or the importance of the work that you do online, where you're setting up important matching experiences so that children can get permanency? Give us a couple of other gems that people watching will go, I'm going to remember them. I'm going to write that down. That's a piece of wisdom from Graham that I'd like to keep.
Well, okay. I think I would probably add to that. I think one of the things that has come to us late, I mean, it absolutely has, and really only in the last 2 or 3 years, is the importance of youth voice. Not only listening to the children from a therapeutic point of view, or just consoling them in their lot and helping them move on from that, but actually empowering them to be involved much more in the process. One of the things that disturbed me all along is that teenagers, usually over the age of 13, 14, are given the right to attend court hearings, and they're given the right to have input in what the social worker says on their behalf in court hearings. And almost never do you see a child in the court hearing. No matter whether it's as serious as termination of parental rights or merely the annual review, it's unusual. And the last 2 or 3 years, I've just had a lot of, my former colleagues moving in the direction of, let's let these youth that are looking for adoptive families take the lead in trying to find a family for themselves. Utilize the technology under supervision, benign supervision, let them do the best that they can to promote themselves, to examine who they are and their assets and their strengths. We were talking about identification of strengths and skills earlier, and how important that is. And so we're beginning now in California to move towards the teenagers actually building their own website on the child available system and creating their own portfolio to present to adoptive families. That is just a huge step forward from treating the kids that we work with as clients and instead treating them as skill builders for themselves. And that's a great thing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You're part of NCAP, the National Council on Adoption and Permanency. Why? And why are you part of it? And what do you hope this rather eclectic, exciting group of researchers and judges and doctors and frontline clinicians, et cetera, what are you're hoping that they can accomplish that still needs to be changed and addressed in the country?
I think it's a fantastic organization for something that has been missing for a long time, which is consolidating research, consolidating experience with compassion. As we were improving the adoption system and child welfare system over the years, we didn't know what we didn't know. NCAP is a way of pulling that together, pulling the expertise of older folks like us, at the same time, a place for younger practitioners and parents and heck, the youth themselves to access the data, access the research. What else has been found to work elsewhere? That central core of knowledge has never really been available in one place. And that's terrifically exciting to have.
And what would you hope would be one outcome that this organization might be able to accomplish, aside from being a central touchstone of all the things that need to change in this country that would benefit children and families? Can you put your finger on one thing that would be a personal goal for you?
Well, my thoughts immediately go to the legislative end of things. I think an organization like NCAP can be, when it is involved in policy decisions and legislative issues, it can make a tremendous difference because it's a powerful body of individuals and knowledge, and it is a quick way for legislators to legislative staff to access expert resources. And I think that would be terrifically good for the development of our system.
Wow, that's powerful. So you would hope not only that it would be a touchstone for research and clinical skills, et cetera, but also a body that can impact legislation on behalf of families and children with powerful voices behind it that could give good reason to legislators to vote one way or another. That's a fabulous goal. It's a fabulous goal. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with people that are watching this?
Oh, well, thanks to you for watching, and thank you, Sharon, for doing this.
My pleasure.
This is tremendous. You've had such an influence on our field, not only in this country, but worldwide. And I just want to congratulate you for your contribution, which has been magnificent.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing this come up on the NCAP site. And I just want to wish you the very best as your career continues to unfold, and happy sailing. That's the best I can bless for you, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.